लास्ट टाइम मैंने कुछ कीवर्ड्स दिए थे सर्च करने के लिए. So if I ask you what is EC2, anybody try to search on those key resources or key services? One of the is called Elastic Compute Cloud, and I was expecting someone to do the search on EC2. So anyone who actually did any search or not?
Yes, sir. EC2 is like Elastic Compute Cloud, in which it allows users to rent virtual computers on which to run their own computer applications. Like पूरा एक computing cloud का एक वो है जहाँ पे ज़्यादा सारे यूजर्स को अलाउ करते हैं कि वो ज़्यादा सारे कंप्यूटर्स virtually रन कर सकें.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Anmol.
I was just going to add to that and say that the purpose of it to kind of prevent any failures, and it's kind of more at a service level.
It is service level. What do you mean?
Can I add to that as well?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, what I read is that for a computer, you only have a fixed amount of RAM, a fixed amount of processors, and a fixed amount of hard disk. Okay. What EC2 allows you to do is to use any number of RAMs, any number of processing power, or any number of storage data in order to access databases or whatever you want to do with your intended app or service.
Yeah, very good. That's elasticity. Actually, you can increase the capacity of your computing. You can increase the capacity of your processing. You can increase the capacity of your memory as you...
Exactly, sir. Yes.
As you required. Okay, good enough. Let's get started. So we will understand what exactly cloud computing is and why we call this a virtual server. Actually, that's the key thing. So all these server we going to use in the cloud are called virtual servers. So EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. Elasticity, as just the previous student just mentioned, so you can increase the capacity as you as per demand. If you have demand with the 2, you can start your server with the 2 processor, 20 gigabyte of memory, and then after 2 days you say I need a 4 processor. So these kind of elasticity you can get from this virtual computer. So in next couple of slides I am going to explain what exactly virtual computer mean. So this is one of the web services which is mostly used. I would say this is the backbone of every technology you have on the web services. क्योंकि अगर आप सर्वर ही नहीं होगा, आपका कंप्यूटर नहीं होगा, तो you cannot run anything, any program, any application, any database. So in order to host the application, in order to host the database, you have to have a physical or virtual hardware. Actually in this course, throughout the course we will be using a lot of these words like a virtual. So I'm going to explain in the next couple of slides what virtual means, but the thing is I'm trying to say this is the backbone of every technology, every service is available on the AWS website. So virtual server is a server that share hardware and the software resources with other operating systems. What this mean? This mean if you see this the server, this server has, for example, this server has what do you call So this server here has like a capacity of I would say, let's see, 20 CPU, and it has like 500 gigabyte of RAM. So this is a physical server, physical machine, which has all these components into this machine. With the help of the software, if I want to use this machine and the computing power, not physically, but I'm saying, let's see, this is like one machine I want to lease in the AWS. I would say this is my Windows server. For this Windows server, I need 2 CPU, and I need like 50 gigabyte of RAM. This is my requirement. This is another server. This is Fahad want to install this server. His requirement is he's going to install the Linux system. He need 4 CPU, and he need like 100 gigabyte of RAM. So these are 2 requirements. Fahad need this much capacity, computing capacity. I need that much computing capacity. There is a software called hypervisor. Hypervisor. So what this software do, it take the physical component of this server and divide into in such a way so it can fulfill the requirement of my server. It can assign 2 CPU out, because this has a capacity of 20 CPU. This is the total capacity of this server. It has a 20 CPU. He going to assign 20 CPU to my Windows server, and is going to assign that much capacity to Fahad server, right? This is what is happening. So my machine does not attach to this the physical hardware. It's not attached to the any CPU. This machine is not attached to any memory. This is the software actually acting in between my machine and this server, and then assigning the 2 CPU and 50 gigabyte of RAM, giving me a virtual power to my machine. And my machine is working as acting as an independent machine. It can has his own operating system on it. Similarly, Fahad machine is acting as an independent machine, and it is running the Linux software on it with this much computing capacity. In fact, this computing capacity is not attached to this physically, but virtually. This hardware is assigning that much computing power to these 2 machines with the help of the software called hypervisor. So what actually happening in the next statement, say the virtual servers mimics dedicated servers functionality. So if this CPU are physically installed in this one, whatever function they are doing in this machine, they will be doing the same function into the virtual environment for my machine and for the Fahad machine. So again, we are sharing the hardware with other instances, with other server which are not physical server, but it's a virtual. It's how they become virtual. They are using the software, and the software called hypervisor. So this is it's gonna look like. So this is the software. This is the physical server. It has all the CPU, disk, and RAM into this, and this software actually assigning the computing power to this machine, which has its own operating system, and they can run their own application on top of this. This box, complete box, is acting as a new server, and that's what we call as a virtual server or instance. Sorry about my...
So, Naeem Saab, I had a question. So this whole process is what's virtual servers are called?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
So see, on the right hand side, if I, let me, so this one, where's my mouse right now? Oh, here. So see, there's a virtual hardware. So this layer, you see under these servers, these are three machines, 1, 2, and 3. They have a different operating system. Let's see, this is a Mac, right? So this is Windows. This is Linux. So they have different operating system. They have running different application on top of that according to their business requirement. But they are getting the computing power from this physical server with the help of this software call, which is sitting between these virtual server and this hardware, is called hypervisor. So once you have this independent environment to run your operating system and application, so this instance with the operating system and the virtual hardware is called instance. So there are different name of this. You can call instance, you can call virtual server, you can call virtual machine. Any question?
Hello, Sanjay. Hello? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So my question is that hypervisor acts as a thing that provides the information from the physical hardware or the services of physical hardware to the apps, to the different laptops or servers. Is it like this?
Yeah, it's like the job of this hypervisor is to assign the computing power from the physical server to the virtual server. The virtual server is nothing but a machine which actually borrowing the power, computing power from the physical hardware behind the scene. Like this.
Thank you.
So this is a layer between the virtual server and the physical server. The job of this is to allocate the power to independent these environment, so they can run independently. I can run Windows here, I can run Linux, but it's going to act just like you are running everything on the physical server. That's the beauty of this. You won't even feel that it is less performance wise, is less than the physical hardware. It will act just like that. Actually, this is a mimic. Actually, it's acting like a physical hardware, but in fact this is the virtual server. It's actually getting the share hardware is being shared with this environment, so they can run independently. To have this kind of functionality and to create this kind of environment, you need a software called hypervisor. So that all the data center you see, they are already running in this is the process they are running. They have a hypervisor, they have a... Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I have a question here, please. This is Saqib. Okay, in normal virtual servers that we take from normal, very general services like Intra server, like Bluehost, so they are fixed. They are having fixed resources, right? So I know that they are sharing the resources, but whatever we buy once, they are fixed and we can upgrade anytime. But in Amazon, that we normally see that they are need-based, they share the resources need-based. So how do they do that, and what's the difference with the normal virtual servers?
So there's a technology called VMware, virtual server. Actually, the technology they're using called VMware. तो जो Amazon है, इसका जो बिजनेस मॉडल, कल मैंने जब इंट्रोडक्शन करवाया था हिस्ट्री ऑफ द AWS, This is how they started. Actually, their business model is they're going to share their infrastructure to so many people, to too many companies, too many organizations. How they're going to use and going to share their infrastructure, going to use not physically but virtually. ये उनका business model है. उस business model के अंदर, this is the technology they're using. They're using hypervisor, they're using a lot of servers, and they're using the VMware software. And other name of this VMware software is hypervisor. अब flexibility इसमें ये है, मुझे नहीं पता, मैं आप कह रहे हो गूगल के अंदर ये flexibility नहीं, I don't know about that, because every cloud computing, the basic concept is this: they're going to sell the virtual server. तो
No. I was asking कि हम usually कुछ services ऐसी हैं जिनसे हम VPS लेते हैं, virtual server लेते हैं, virtual private servers लेते हैं. So they are not extendable on the basis of need and traffic and load, right? Amazon does this,
yes,
and some other services does this. So that's the difference actually I'm asking.
वो जो VMware आपकी बात करें वो ऐसा है कि बहुत सारी प्राइवेट कंपनीज जो हैं, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हैं, उन्होंने अपने virtual server भी क्रिएट किए हुए हैं. So obviously when you have your own virtual server, they will have limitations. लेकिन यहाँ पे लिमिटेशन नहीं है. यहाँ पे अगर एक डेटा सेंटर के अंदर कंप्यूटिंग पावर की शॉर्टेज हो जाएगी तो दे आर गोइंग टू ऑटोमेटिकली गोइंग टू असाइन यू द कंप्यूटिंग पावर फ्रॉम द नेक्स्ट अवेलेबिलिटी जोन और या डेटा सेंटर. यूज़र ये कभी नहीं कह सकता कि मुझे आई वांट टू स्केल अप एंड स्केल डाउन, आई वाज हैविंग डिफ़िकल्टी, मुझे 10 CPU चाहिए थे लेकिन अमेज़न के पास अवेलेबल नहीं. इट्स नॉट गोइंग टू हैपन. दे हैव एनफ कैपेसिटी. That's why they call elastic computing. So you can as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. So any question? Because this is very important topic to understand.
Can you tell us a bit about how the hypervisor achieves this then? So how does it? Are there any kind of how does it function to do this, to enable this to happen?
Yes, let's see you have a Wi-Fi modem at your home, or you actually paying for that Wi-Fi modem, and the Wi-Fi modem is connected to the cable which is coming from the internet service provider to your home, and then you are hooking your modem with that cable. Once you have set up your Wi-Fi, you can allow your friends and your family member to use your internet. So in fact, you are sharing the power of internet with other people, not physically, but virtually. So exactly same thing is here. So these server, they have a capacity of like 100 CPU. So if they are physically holding, let me go. If they're physically holding this, this machine has a capacity of 100 CPU, and they have 100 CPU in it. It have a 500 gigabyte of memory, and they want to share with if you go there to say I want to create an instance, मुझे Windows server चाहिए, virtual server चाहिए, and I need that much capacity. I need a 4 CPU. I need 20 gigabyte of memory. So when you request, what happened behind the scene, this hypervisor go to this physical machine, assign 2 of the CPU to you here, and create a virtual environment for you, which you can use independently. So this is going to be your server independently. So it's this rest of the job is being done by hypervisor. He is taking the physical CPU, physical memory, and converting into this virtual memory and assigning to as per your demand. You want 2 CPU or 50 GB. So they're going to assign you. So this is actually creating the virtual environment for you, where you can install your own operating system. You can install your own applications. So it's totally independent. So again, the next person comes in, he say, I need one more server, and his requirement is different. He need a 4 CPU. Again, this hypervisor, until they use the capacity of this server has a 100 CPU, 500 GB. Once it keep assigning list like 100 of customers coming in and buying this virtual memory, virtual CPUs. Once it's completed, the hardware is completely assigned to like 2, 10, 20, 30 CPU, and at the end of the day, it's gonna assign all his CPU and all his memory. Then it's gonna go to the next server. Then they start signing from there. This also has a 100 CPU capacity, so they're gonna keep signing. Like one customer now need 10 CPU, other one say I need 20 CPU. So this hypervisor going to get interact in between, and they're going to create this environment. In this environment, they will assign you from this physical hardware to the virtual hardware 10 CPU. So these CPU is not directly sitting on this environment. This is sitting on this server, but it's giving the computing power to your virtual environment so you can run independently.
Okay, thank you.
So we already discussed this. This is the resizable computing capacity. So you can resize, you can increase the capacity. At some point you say, okay, I don't need that much capacity because my business is slow. So you can decrease, you can also shrink the capacity. So the beauty is this, once you have a virtual environment which is acting as a dedicated environment just for you, so you can reboot this machine independently. It's not going to, it's not like this कि अगर आप उसको reboot करोगे तो वो पीछे जो server है वो भी reboot हो जाएगा. No, this is the totally independent. It's dedicated to you, and you can reboot, you can restart, you can terminate, you have total control over that environment. So again, this is you can both up and down, so you can scale up, you can scale down, you can increase the capacity, you can decrease the capacity. That's what he's talking about. So the thing is, AWS charges you for the time your EC2 instance is running. So this is another thing. कल मैं किसी ने मुझे पूछा था कि I will shop around. So this is the shop around. Like you will say I need this capacity for 2 hours, I need this capacity for 1 day, I need this capacity for 48 hours. They're going to charge you per hour. How they're going to charge you, how much they're going to charge you, I will show you in the next slide maybe.
Naim Saab, I have a question.
Sure.
So basically, when you're done with your time, you buy this server for a period of time, and you process your data within it. What happens to your data once your time is up?
Say again, your time is up?
When your time is up, what happens to your data, the processed data which you did over the past couple of days?
Like this कि आपका time up हो जाएगा तो disconnect, ऐसा नहीं है. इसका कहने का मकसद ये है कि अगर आप उसको यूज कर रहे हो, आप उस इंस्टेंस को यूज कर रहे हो, until you terminate it, it is available to you. और जब आप terminate करते हो उसको, उसके बाद आपके पास आप कहते हैं कि okay, I don't need a computing power anymore, but my application, when the application was running for the last 3 days, for example, आपकी application run कर रही है उसके ऊपर 3 दिन से, आपने computing power ली, right? और कंप्यूटिंग जो है आपका जो सर्वर है ये रन कर रहा है फॉर द लास्ट 48 आवर. सो दिस इज अ बिजनेस एप्लीकेशन. सो बिजनेस एप्लीकेशन जैसा कि मैंने कल बताया था कि फर्ज करें आप ग्रोसरी स्टोर पे गए हैं, सो ऑल द ट्रांजैक्शंस इज हैपनिंग, दीज आर बीइंग स्टोर्ड. सो दिस एनवायरनमेंट ऐसे होता है. आपका एक होगा एप्लीकेशन सर्वर.
सही है.
एप्लीकेशन सर्वर ये होता है कि उसके ऊपर सारी फंक्शनैलिटी होती है, जैसे कि स्कैनर जो है वो स्कैन किया, दिस स्कैनर इज एन एप्लीकेशन, ठीक है. उसके बाद इसके पीछे एक और सर्वर होता है, उसको कहते हैं डेटाबेस सर्वर.
ओके.
So all the transaction happening through this application being stored on the database server.
Okay.
ठीक है? After
Understood.
48 hours, आप कहते हो कि मैंने business अपना बंद कर दिया है for some reason. So you going to terminate this server, application server.
Okay.
But your data is sitting on the different server. It's a database server. So you are losing this, but not this.
Okay. So you so you have to pay for the database then separately, yeah?
So the whole business is about the database, right? आप कोई भी application काम जब launch करते हो तो वो application करती क्या है? मसलन मैं अगर आप फिर वही मिसाल दे रहा हूँ कि स्कैनर क्या कर रहा है, ये वो आपका डेटा कलेक्ट कर रहा है ना कि क्या क्या बिका, कितनी सेल हुई है, कितनी कैश मिला है, या क्रेडिट कार्ड से पेमेंट हुई है. दिस इज ऑल अबाउट द डेटा. दैट डेटा इज बीइंग stored on the database here. Application is using the functionality to receive the payment. This is being used to receive the information from the scanner, and that after the information is coming through this application being stored on the database server.
Okay.
So down the road, if you lose this, but your data will be there. And by default,
your data will be there.
By default, the environment is created like this. If you have a database server running, it always have a copy of this in the different data center. So agar aap ye again you will have a copy of data in different environments.
So you initially pay for the database, but in order to use EC2, you have to pay extra for its services. And when you're done using EC2, you terminate the application, but your data is stored because that's what you initially paid for.
Yeah, this is this is all about the services. Jitni services आप चाहेंगे, you have to pay for that. हर सर्विस के अलग-अलग. If you want a database, there is a different cost. If you want a web server, there is a different cost. If you want a storage, आप चाहते हो कि आपका ट्रिलियन टेराबाइट ऑफ डाटा है या gigabyte of data, you need a place to store your data, then you have to pay for storage. If you want to run a different kind of database, so you have to pay for each and every database. If you are running the application server, which is on like a e-commerce, for e-commerce you need two servers. You need a web server, you need two environment actually. So you need one is called web server. So web server is going to receive all the traffic from the web, right?
Yeah.
So behind the scene you're running the e-commerce website. So this
e-commerce website
is like this is like an application, e-commerce application. So then you need a application server. So this is instance 1.
Okay.
This is instance 1. You're running the web server. This is instance 2. Other machine, you're running your application, right? Now we have a instance 3. So you are running your database. So the traffic coming through the web server, going to your application, doing the functionality here, and storing the data on database server. This is the environment it's going to look like. So
okay.
3 servers altogether.
So you need 3 servers. Okay. So it was web server and an app server and then your database.
Yes. If your web server is down, so you will not be getting the traffic. If you're not getting the traffic, people will not have access to the application server. But you still have a database which has all the information, all about the transactions has been done until the date these 2 applications were failed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Naim-Sab.
So this is what I was explaining in my presentation. So you can run the application in Amazon. You can run the web server. This is your requirement. You can run you can host any kind of like a database. And the beauty is this: you can actually manage and this system remotely. You can have access remotely. You don't have to be physically there. So this is cloud instance, also known as cloud server, virtual machines, whatever the name you want to give it. At the end of the day, this is a sharing infrastructure. That what I explained to you, hypervisor and the assigning the computing power to the virtual server.
So does that mean then for businesses the main benefit is that it reduces like upfront costs of investing in hardware, so they don't have to purchase the hardware, they're sharing it through virtual?
This is the beauty.
Okay.
So see, when any business start the business, right? So they and they say, okay, I want my business online. So they start developing the application. For example, आपकी कोई business है, आप कहते हो कि मैंने इसको online लेके जाना है. So first of all, you need a e-commerce website application. App, right? So जब ये app आपको चाहिए, तो you have a developer who going to develop your application. When developers are working on this application, they're developing, they need an environment कि जो भी वो code लिखेंगे, उस code को they want to run on some, like they need a hardware, virtual environment or physical environment where they can run their code. So this is called development environment. तो सारी जो डेवलपमेंट है वो इस एनवायरनमेंट में होगी. सो दिस इज व्हाट इज दिस इज अ सर्वर. इट्स अ virtual server or physical server is up to you. Once they do the development, they want to test it. Then they need the new environment. It's called QA, quality assurance. They're gonna transfer the code जो भी programming की है to this environment, and here they will be doing all the testing. Once the testing is passed, is done, is giving all the functionality what client is looking for, then this is ready for the business. Then this is gonna go to another environment. So this is called production environment. So now the business is in production. So that means you need one environment here for development, one for testing, and one for production. So for these three environments, if I want to start developing today, I need these three environments. Every time I write a code, I want to test it, and then I have to promote to the production environment. So think about this. If I have to do this myself, यानी I have to buy my own hardware, तो मुझे 3 किस्म के सर्वर बाय करने पड़ेंगे, 3 किस्म के environment क्रिएट करने पड़ेंगे सिर्फ अपनी एक एप्लीकेशन को डेवलपमेंट करने के लिए. In the cloud, I will just go there, I do click, I will have a 3 environment ready for me, and I can start writing the code. So this is the beauty of cloud computing, and this is elasticity. And you don't have to pay upfront. अब आप फर्ज करो कि आपकी डेवलपमेंट के अंदर आपको लगते हैं 1 month to complete this application. So you are paying for only 1 month for this environment. Testing में फर्ज करो आपको 2 weeks लगते हैं. So you will be paying for 2 weeks. And the production, you want to keep this your business running. So you will be paying for the rest of your life unless you stop your business. This is how it works.
I have a question. Sure. So we'll be having 3 instances, so we can shut down the other 2 when the application is in production, right?
Yes. It depends. अगर आपका environment ऐसा आप समझते हैं कि आपकी you don't need any enhancement or any improvement in your application. Let's see कि later on आप कहते हो कि हाँ आपको सिर्फ production environment में आप अपनी ऐप रन कर रहे हो, तो आपको फिर बाद में if you want to increase the functionality of your application, at that time you can again get this environment for a short period of time. आप फर्ज करें आप फंक्शन रन कर रही है, उसमें आप एक फंक्शन ऐड करना चाहते हैं, वो फंक्शन हैव टू गो थ्रू दिस लाइफ साइकिल, दे हैव टू गो थ्रू दिस डेवलपमेंट, टेस्टिंग, राइट, एंड द प्रोडक्शन. तो आपको मे बी दिस यू नीड दिस टू एनवायरमेंट फॉर मे बी 1 week. Once you have developed your function and you integrate to your existing application, you can terminate this environment. You can continue running your production one.
Okay.
Got it?
Yes, thanks.
So what is saying, there are dozen of instance are available on the Amazon website. So let me show you everything. That's gonna make more sense when I show you things. So remember, every time we go to launch the instance, so these are the lists. This is what he's talking about. Say कि Amazon के ऊपर आपको ये सारे information है. I want to launch this one. If my business, this instance meets the requirement of my business, I can run this one. I can select this. If I want to run a window environment, so I will go and select this one. So these are all the different environment AWS platform is offering, and the client, they go here, they look for this environment and they say, okay, this is the best for my business. They're going to select and they're going to launch this instance, and they will be paying per hour. So these are all, there are dozen and dozen and keep going up. I mean, it's not like they have a lot of instances running right now, but there are other sources, like they have a AWS marketplace. What is this marketplace is? This is like a Google store. आप वहाँ से जाके आप जब कोई ऐप डाउनलोड करते हो, इसी तरह ये Amazon का स्टोर है, Google स्टोर है. This is where they are selling their images, they are selling their instances, different kind of instances. See, infrastructure software, business applications, machine learning, all these kind of things you can buy from here. कुछ ऐसे हैं जो कि वो free में हैं, like these instances, they are free. You can just go and pick one and then you install. So look at this one. This is the instance type. So see, this is extra large. So they have a medium, they have a small. So they have categorized their instance into different classes. So the classes are identified by A1. This is the class. इस क्लास के अंदर आपको देखें 8 CPU मिलेंगे, और इसमें आपको जो memory है, you will have that much memory. So this is going to A1 type. So A1 type के अंदर आपको है extra large, 4 times extra large, just extra large, medium, right? So metal, they have given different name. So you can pick any of the instance. On the right hand side, if you see, it is telling you how much you're going to pay. If I select this one, so I will be paying 0.42 USD per hour. So what this instance contain, it will consist of 8 CPUs. This is going to be architecture like a 64-bit architecture. This is that's much going to be the memory capacity, and by default is going to have 160 gigabyte of hard disk, and you will be paying 42 cents per hour if you launch this machine. So these are the different, see, there's so many classes. It depends on your kind of business you want to run. किसी business की requirement, for example, they need a 48 CPU and they need that much memory. So they will be paying $2 and 0.064 USD per hour.
And Namesab, there is one free instance as well, right?
That's what I'm using for to show you the demo. I'm doing my all demo on free. So there are instances. They are free. If I go to like a dashboard, I'm going to launch it. So see this telling you free tier eligible, free tier. So you can practice actually with these instances. If you, where they say free tier, those are available to you, but these are other all instances you have to pay for that. See, this is free. This is free. Any question?
Yeah, it's important that you guys ask questions if you don't understand anything, because then we can take out any kind of misinformation that you might have at this point in time. So do ask questions, guys.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why are the pricing so, like, there's such a large variation in each pricing that you just showed us?
Why?
Other than size.
Price actually, remember in my first day I show you the key component of any computing system is like a memory, CPU, and the storage. So the way they define these categories, the classes, is depend upon how much computing power you want. If you want 10 CPUs, processor, and 100 gigabyte of memory, and I want only 2 CPU and 20 gigabyte of memory, obviously I'm going to pay less and you will be paying more. So it's depend how much computing power you need for your businesses.
Okay, thank you. So
this is what I'm saying. The way they design these instances, they depend on these dimensions: the virtual memory, virtual CPU, virtual memory, and storage, and network performance. So like M4 family, this is the name of the family. In M4 you will find like a medium, small, large, and extra large. And the way they define this family, it depends upon the kind of instance performance. For example, if you have an instance which has a 2 CPU and is belong to M4 family and has less than 10 gigabyte of RAM, we will call this instance large. If it has a 4 CPU and he has a memory of more than 10 gigabyte, it's gonna be extra large. Just like you go and buy your clothes, you have extra large and medium. This is how they define their instance type: large, extra large, extra large, or 2x large. And M4 actually belonging to a different category, different family. So let me show you. So like this, if you are getting instance from the C4 family, so all the computer in C4 family will be called compute optimized. That means they have a more processing power. So all the instance which has a significant processing power belong to C4 family. And once you get there to C4 family, then there you have option for small, medium, and large. So you say, okay, my application is doing a lot of mathematical algorithms and there's a lot of processing going on, so I will buy a computer or instance from C4 family, and the size would be extra large. That's what this means. If you are running the games which are more memory intensive, even the algorithm, all kind of algorithm require higher size of the memory. So then you will select this R3 family, and then R3 family you will select the size of your instance: medium, large, and extra large. That's what it's saying. So see here, these are the name families A1, T3, T3A, T2, all these are the families. But in each family, then again you have a mid sizes, medium, large, A1. This belong to A1, right? So belong to A1 family. Then they have this kind of size of instance: medium, large, extra large, 2 extra large, and this kind. It's common. Totally, you use this kind of in your day-to-day life. When you do the shopping, you see even your clothing, you select the size. Okay, so this is Amazon machine images. What this mean? Anybody can explain to me what images mean? इसका तर्जमा ही कर दें, ट्रांसलेशन ही कर दें, images क्या मतलब क्या है?
Is it maybe a replication of your own data?
Replication?
Yeah, so like an image.
That's good. आगे.
Wow.
It is something like when we create an operating system, it has the basics of everything regarding to the operating system. So once you start your machine, it can run the initial softwares.
Yeah, that's correct. So every time you build your virtual server, so virtual server required like you said, okay, I want this machine, and on this machine I want Windows 10, right? You also said, you know what, I want Microsoft Office on this machine, and you said I need 4 CPU, and then you said I need like 20 GB of RAM. So let's see, this machine belonged to Fahad. So I tell Fahad, I want the same machine. Whatever you have on your server, I want the similar copy of this. So this is what image mean. So everything you have on this machine, if I make a copy of this, and from that copy I launch my instance, separate instance, which has everything on this server which Fahad has. So in order to do this, I have to make a copy of this, which is in computer terminology called image. So I will take the image, just like a selfie, right? You take your selfie, this is your image, and that image is that very moment. For example, जब आपने selfie ली थी, you are wearing the glasses, so this image will be with the glasses. So same thing here. So when you have these server, जब मैंने इसका image बनाया था, जब मैंने इसकी copy की थी, whatever is happening here, whatever was running on this machine, I will get the exact copy, and then from that copy I will launch my server. This is the concept of image.
Yeah, kind of a screenshot of whole machine.
Yeah, you can also, this is good for example, you can picture like this कि ये मैंने screenshot ली है, और वो screenshot का जो मैंने ली है, इसी तरह की चीज़ मैंने अपनी भी बनानी है. Any question about image?
So isn't this like plagiarism, like you're actually copying someone else's idea?
No. I'm talking about the infrastructure here.
Ah, okay.
Infrastructure, देखें ना, आप अपने कंप्यूटर बाय किया, एक लैपटॉप आप गए हो बाजार से, आप लैपटॉप बाय करके लेके आए, उसके अंदर आपको पता है कितनी मेमोरी, क्या कितना CPU है, राइट?
Yep.
आपका भाई कहता है मैंने भी ऐसा ही लेना है, जो कुछ इसके अंदर है ना, मुझे भी ऐसा ही चाहिए.
सही है.
What he's actually asking the copy, he wants similar machine for himself. इसमें वही functionality, वही software, वही hardware होगा.
Okay.
लेकिन cloud environment के अंदर ये है, you have already images, AMI, right? I just showed
Okay.
you.
So I can explain this to you as well in more simpler terms. So for example, Wasim, आप मेरे घर आते हो, मेरे पास एक CPU पड़ा हुआ है जिसके अंदर सारी चीजें हैं. So we're calling that an instance, correct?
Yep.
तो हुआ ये है कि you really like what you have, like what I have, and you're like मुझे बिल्कुल वही चीजें चाहिए जो आपके पास है फहद. तो मैं कहता हूँ चलो ठीक है, and then you and I go to the store and make all the parts into a CPU or a proper instance, right?
Yep.
And that is exactly what an image is. It's a complete duplication of what you have as a CPU now. ठीक है ना? So that instance is the same thing that I have. So in this virtual technology, when AWS, what it does is that you can take one instance, and suppose you have a requirement of about 100 staff that need the computing power to be the same and is more cost effective. You can do that with a click of a button, whereas you and me had to take the whole day to assemble a computer and make that work into a duplicate. So it actually saves a lot of time and money for everyone in this scenario.
So basically, these AMIs are available online, and if you want, and while you're having a look through, you see, yeah, this is the kind of instance that I would require. So you can just copy it and buy it.
Correct. You can also make your own customized instance, as you will later on in the labs, and then you can actually instantly copy it to, let's say you have become the new Apple, right? And you registered your company in another country. So what you would do is you would just click on a different thing on the top, jahan pe North Virginia likha hua na. You can click on London, verify that you have a license for your company, and instantly start your business in that country as well. It's that simple.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Now I'm going to show you in this demo. I want you to read this one. Say instance type is T2 micro, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's see, it's a computing capacity. So we are running on Linux. See, this is
Yes.
This is software.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are going to see how much the hard disk it has. So see the number of CPU.
No, I don't. Yeah, number of CPUs. Yes.
Right.
One. Yep.
So let's see how much hard drive it has. I'm going to see the hard drive. I'm going to hear the volume. So it's saying this one have a 50 gigabyte of hard drive.
Yep.
Right?
It's over there. Yep.
So I want the same machine. See, this is name instance, right? See,
Yes.
so name instance has T2 micro instance type. It
Mm-hmm.
has one CPU. It has a 50 gigabyte of hard disk.
Yep.
Okay. Watch this. See the image?
Yes.
I'm going to create the image of this instance. I would call this Fahad.
Okay.
Sorry, Naim Sab, out of context, can we take a break in about 4 or 5 minutes? 10-minute break? No, a 10-minute break after 5 minutes.
So see,
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to create the image.
Okay, the request has been received, and
See, this
it's processing.
image is being created.
Uh-huh.
So it actually copying whatever server I was running, is making a copy of that information regarding that machine. So I can have the similar machine for Fahad.
Okay. Understood. Understood.
One question, sir.
Yes. Go ahead.
सर ये साथ हमारे फिजिकल रिसोर्सेज भी इज द सेम थिंग, ये साथ वही यूज करेगा जो हमारी प्रीवियस मशीन में थी?
मैं समझा नहीं क्या कह रहे हैं आप, कौन से resources?
Physical resources like processor, RAM, and all these things.
नहीं, ये वो यूज नहीं करेगा. That's I'm going to show you. It's just copying the structure, the software, the number of VPC.
All right, got it.
लेकिन जब hypervisor इसको assign करेगा, this is not the same CPU. This is going to be different CPU.
And will be charged separately.
Obviously, because this is a new instance. मैं सिर्फ उसकी copy बना रहा हूँ, लेकिन I have to pay for computing, obviously. So
Perfect, got it.
now this image is ready. I am in the image. So what I'm saying, if I click on the launch, it's going to launch a new machine. See, automatically taking me to T2 micro, because that's what I had. So if I go here, where's IP auto sign? Okay, enable. So remember, I had a 50 gigabyte of hard disk. This instance also going to have a 50 gigabyte. It's a copy of that.
Okay.
So see the number of VPC, 1. See here on at the bottom.
Yes, number of vCPUs, 1. Linux.
Right, and let me
Yes.
see the volume, 50.
50 gigabyte.
So now I think you have a clear picture what I was talking about, images and this.
Yes, exactly.
Now
Yep.
you can take a break.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take your 10-minute break, guys. Just come back when you guys. Well, it's 1:10 right now, so when. Okay. Yep.
Right, perfect.
Right, Namesov, it's been 10 minutes. Let's start class again.
Okay.
I think we've gone above 10 minutes, actually, 2 extra minutes, but that's okay. We can start.
Okay. Where were we? So we just learned about the Amazon machine images and how we can make a copy of images, and then from that copy we can actually launch another instance, which is nothing but the duplication of the server I was already running. So where we can get these images, Amazon has provided 4 sources from where you can get the images. The number 1 is the Amazon actually publish these images, and they provide through their web services page. I think I showed you already. So here I'm going to instance. So these are all the why is frozen? Instance type. So all these instance types are here. So he's giving you the size, giving you the class, giving you the price. I think I already showed you this one. So this is one of the source, and they are providing the images. Other source is AWS Marketplace. So this is like a Google App Store. Amazon has their own app store called Marketplace. You can go there and you can buy these images from there. And those are the images like developers, like a third person, different developers and parties. They have created some images and they made a copy of those images, and they're selling this on the AWS marketplace. So generated from existing instance, I just showed you that I had instance which was like name instance, and I created from this Fahad machine. So this is what it's talking about. So you can generate from existing instance. And the other thing is upload virtual server. What is talking about? When you some company, they already running their system, and they have their own private environment. They are not using the cloud. But when they decide to move their system to the cloud, so whatever images they are running in their company data center, they can import those images and they can create the same environment in the cloud. That's what this is talking about here, import export service. So this topic, we're going to talk about the public IP address, private IP address, and the elastic IP address. For that, I am going to show you an example. So this example will make more sense than this technical terminology. So let's see. Everybody can see this page. This I have a layout.
Yes, we can see it.
So let's see, these people who are living in this apartment, they are very rich people. So they have their own intercom system. So they have an intercom system in the bedroom, which has a phone dialing number is 100, and then this bedroom has other. They have a 200 dialing code. So this one is in a living room, and this one has what number? 300, sorry. So one intercom connection in the kitchen, so they can call their cook to get the coffee for them. So this is here. So this is 400 number. In this house, when they want to communicate, they are using this intercom. So when they are using this intercom, can I call this a private network? Because these conversations, they cannot dial out. They can just talk to each other while they are in this apartment. So can I call this a private network?
Yes.
Okay, makes sense, right?
Yes.
In the living room, they have a intercom. Beside intercom, they have a landline, the phone number. So if anybody wants to call outside the house to his friends and family, they have to use this landline. So can I call this landline a public network?
Yes.
Because they can receive the call from the outside, inbound call, or they can make a call outside. It's an outbound call. So this is they having access to the public, their friends, their family, their relatives, whatever, their businesses, whatever. So can I call this public network?
Yes.
Okay, good. So everything is clear, right? So far, so good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I have, for example, if I have, instead of this intercom connections, if I have environment in this house, each bedroom has their own PC or laptop, and they are sending and receiving the message through this PC to each other, and those messages are not leaving this building, this apartment. They are staying in this communication is happening inside. So again, can I call this a computer environment is a private subnet? Because communication is not going outside.
Yes.
So the PC,
Yes.
the PC I have in the living area, it has a private connection, as well as this is the only PC in the house which will have an internet connection. So you see here, why it's not taking? Oh, so PC here, the only PC in the house which has internet connection. So this internet connection means he can browse any website, and he can also receive an email. Make sense?
Yes.
This is outbound connection and inbound connection. So he can receive the email, he can go outside and browse the website. So this environment is, I would call, public access, mean public network, and the rest of this house is private network. So remember yesterday when I was giving the example of shopping mall, I was telling, so once the people who are inside, they can move up and down anywhere, and they are not concerned because they are not connected to outside the world. So the machines inside this building, they can communicate on the private network, and any machine which will have an internet connection, they can talk to outside world, outside this building, outdoors, outside this data center. Same example I'm giving here. I'm showing you this apartment, and this apartment scenario. I'm trying to define what is private communication and what is public communications. So let's see in action in this world. So let's see, I am going to select this instance. So on my right hand side, do you see the public IP address? See here? Everybody can see?
Yes. Yes.
So any device on the network, when they communicate, they need to have some sort of address, just like your phone number. So your device, you have a phone. This device has two numbers, two kind of addresses. One is called hardware address. Hardware address, also called MAC address. And other address it has is a phone number. So if anybody want to talk to you, they will use your phone number. But if your device get lost, कोई उठा के ले गया आपकी डिवाइस, और आपको लगता है कि आप यू फाइंड योर डिवाइस, यू से दिस इज़ माइन, और वो बंदा कहता है ये आपकी नहीं है. इफ़ यू हैव अ record of your hardware, if you have a record of your MAC address, you can match, and with this MAC address you will tell them, okay, this is the device I bought and it belong to me because I have a receipt. और जो भी आपके डॉक्यूमेंट फ़ोन के साथ आते हैं उसके ऊपर हमेशा MAC address लिखा होता है. So to communicate with this device, you need to have a phone number. Similarly, any device which is on the network, those devices like this device communicating with other device, they need some kind of address. So those addresses called IP address. Otherwise they cannot communicate. They should know each other's IP address. This is a device. A computer should know the IP address of the B, otherwise they cannot establish the communication. So IP stand for Internet Protocol. Internet Protocol is the protocol which establish the connection with other device on the network. So must every device who want to communicate, which want to communicate to each other, and using the internet connection or private connections, every device must have an IP address in order to communicate. Any question?
Yeah, I have a question. So in what sort of scenarios then, or situations in terms of like business models, would you use a private one and then a public one?
Yeah, that's my next, I'm going to show you. So see this, this machine has a public IP address 54.209.255. So this means this machine can talk outside world, or people from outside this data center, they can use their internet connection and connect to my machine. That's what this means. On the left hand side you see the private IP address. If this machine belong to Naeem, right? So Naeem machine wanna talk to Fahad machine, they will use the private IP address because Fahad also have a private IP address. So in order to call Fahad, this machine will use this IP address 172.358.5137. Naeem machine will use this IP address to communicate with Fahad. And if Fahad want to communicate with me, with my machine, so he has to use this IP address 172.3.184.115. So this is internal communication within an AWS network. This is outside the network. When you use this IP address, your traffic, your message leaving the AWS network and going somewhere else. For example, if I type in my server www.google.com, so this when I type this, the traffic, the request is going to the Google server, they're leaving the AWS environment and hitting the Google environment. And this is how the page is displayed on my computer. So this is my, on my Naeem instance, I am running the web page. So anyone who is using the laptop or desktop, whatever, I want him to type this 54.209.255.52 in their address bar. So let me make a copy of this and let me know what they see.
Sir, please repeat kar dein.
Okay. See this IP address 54.209.255.255.
Yes, yes.
Just copy.
.255. Yes, sir. IP addresses. Sorry. सबके इनने IP addresses with addresses दिए हुए हैं.
No. I'm saying, did you type this 54.209.255.52?
Yeah, it just says welcome to Bizvaria.
You should read this message, welcome to Bizvaria USA. So what this means, you are able to access your system. I am allowing you to connect to my server and see this message. Now if you type this IP address of my machine, private IP address, and then see what happens.
Yeah, this should not have worked.
So you won't be able to see this page.
Naeem Saab, I have a question.
Sure.
So basically, because you created an image of your computer, of your instance, and named that as Fahad's machine, you are able to access this his private IP address. Wait, I'm not structuring the question maybe properly, but what I'm trying to say is that because you created created an image of the same instance that you have, you are allowed to access his computer, Fahad by his computer as well.
No, that's not the reason. So that image does not copy the IP address. That image is only copy the software information, what kind of software he's running, and underlying what kind of infrastructure he's using. That's it. It's not going to have any information about the network, IP address or anything else. So this IP address is assigned when we launch this instance. So if I launch instance, watch this again. This is very important for you guys to understand how this communication happens. So I am selecting this. So next option is telling me I am going to launch this instance. Okay. Look at this. There's a one option called auto assign public IP address. So this is enabled. So because this is enabled, I will get the public IP address of this instance. So if I say no, if I disable it, then see what happens. So Fahad, what do you think what going to happen?
Sorry, you're asking me?
Yeah.
Well, what's going to happen is that once you basically change it to static IP, then it should work.
No. It's not static IP. Auto assigning the public IP address. Look at the right hand side.
I think
Yes.
I think it won't work unless you assign one
So see on the right
manually, maybe.
In this instance, I don't have a public IP address because when I was launching this instance, I disabled this function.
Yeah, simple. It shouldn't work.
So if I go there, name instance, I have IP address. Fahad has an IP address, public IP address. We both have a public IP address beside the private IP address. I have a private IP address and the public IP address. So let's see what I have. Same thing. I have one private IP address and one public IP address. But this instance doesn't have a public IP address. This has only private IP address. That means this system can only communicate with internal devices. Nobody can reach this server. Neither these servers can communicate outside world. Clear?
So basically, it's
Okay, go ahead.
I guess that was Notion. You can ask your question. It's okay.
Oh, mine was a really quick one. So I was just going to ask. So basically, when you're launching an instance, you can actually determine the features and what you kind of want in there.
Exactly. If I want my system to have a public access, then I have to enable the public IP address. and that will be automatically assigned to this. If I say I don't want public to have access to my system, then I can disable it. So then if I disable this, it will definitely get the private IP address, no matter if I what happened. It must, every device when they communicate, they must have some sort of IP address. So there are two kinds of IP address. One is called public IP address. Public IP address allow you to communicate outside the AWS network. You can go browse any website. If you don't have a public IP address, nobody can access to your system. Neither you can access any system outside the AWS network. But you can communicate within the AWS network with other devices, which are other devices who has private IP addresses. So one device with the private IP address can talk to other device with the private IP address. But to going outside the network, you need a public IP address.
So basically, the third instance right now, it is not allowed to communicate with the public, with people who have access to your public IP address because it does not have one, but it can communicate on a private network.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. Private IP mean private network. Private network mean you cannot leave this communication, the AWS network. Just like this, I show you intercom. So intercom is for internal use only. So all these people can talk to each other with the intercom. So if they want to make a phone call outside to somebody, they have to use the landline. Simple example. Question?
So guys, if you understand the concept, that's great. But if you don't, it's a good time to ask a question. It's not an issue.
Sorry, I've got a question, Fahad. So I think it goes back to my original question. So in what kind of business models or instances would you actually use a private IP, and then in which ones would you use a public one? So would a private one be for more sort of internal business use, and a public one maybe for like customer facing services?
Okay. This is your web server. And do you want, you're running your website, so obviously you have this website so people can access to your website, right?
Yeah.
So this will be assigned public IP address because this is your web server. Behind the scene, what this application, this server is doing, actually they also getting the traffic in, and their traffic is like a database. So people are accessing this server, and in between there is a other server called application server. So web server is showing the website, right? www whatever you have. So once they click on this, any function of this, that function is sitting on the application server. So let's see somebody go on your website and they want to buy a product, and they're going to fill out the information. They say, okay, this is my name, this is what my address, this is my phone number, this is my credit card number. So those information, when he submit the information, those information go through this application servers on the database server. So what is most critical server in these three environment? Database, application, or web? That's my question.
I guess that's an app server, yeah?
No.
Okay.
Database?
Yes. the most important thing for the business point of view is that your database. So this database server will be sitting on your private IP address. No one can have access to this except this application server. This application server has a private IP address, right? And this database server has a private IP address. So these two can talk to each other. But the web server can only talk to this application server. It cannot talk to database. And we will see why I'm saying that how we implement the firewalls and what kind of implementation we do. So web server cannot have access to database, but they can have access to application. So your database server is sitting on the private network with the private IP address. So internal communication between application server and database service is possible, but the web server cannot talk to your, because this is the public facing, so they cannot go to your web server database system. Making sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the actually slide about the source of AMI. I think I already discussed. There's a different So you have public IP address, you have private, you have understanding what is public, what's IP. There's another IP address called elastic IP address. What is elastic IP address? It said an elastic IP address is an address unique on the internet that you reserve independently and associate with Amazon EC2 instance. ये ऐसे है कि आपने एक मोबाइल फ़ोन लिया और मोबाइल फ़ोन के लिए आप सब्सक्राइबर के पास किए जिसकी आपको सर्विस चाहिए. So they will give you choice. They say, okay, this is the list of the phone number we have available, so you just pick one. So for example, you picked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So this is your phone number. You pick this. So this phone number is attached to your mobile because you have a SIM. So this phone number is attached to this SIM, and now you're using it. So it will stay with you until you decide to terminate it, until you decide to change your phone number. That's what he's talking about. So elastic IP address is you going to reserve the IP address for your system so that you can use as long as you want. But if you want, at some point you don't want this, you can release this IP address, and that IP address going to, for example, this is one machine A, this is machine B, right? So you got one IP address, reserved IP address 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for this A machine, and then you say, okay, no, I don't need this machine anymore. You just terminate. Now you have this IP address available to you because you reserved it. You can use this IP address for machine B. You can assign the same IP address to machine B. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's why they say elastic IP. It's elasticity. You reserve the IP address, and you can use at what machine you want to. Clear?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what happened here? So see, where was I? Okay, so somebody used this IP address and pasted it in their browser, and they got this message, right? This is what happened. Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What if I restart this machine? Let's see what happened. I'm going to restart it. I'm going to stop it. So right now I have this IP address. So I stop this machine. See what happened? The public IP, when I stop this machine, the public IP address is gone. But I still have a private IP address. Let's see what happened when I restart it. So when I stop this machine, my IP address was this 54.209.255.52. Yeah, like this one. See, my new IP address is not the same.
But your private is still the same.
So do you think I should see this page if I paste the new IP address here? Because it's the same instance, only IP address changed. Do you see why I should see if I type this new IP address here?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes, you should.
Okay.
No. Yes.
Yes.
Can anybody explain to me why yes?
No, I guess क्योंकि
It's the same machine, but it has a new IP address. Should I see this page or not?
No,
Who's this?
this is Sakib. Hi. Hi. Because the IP address is changed, unless we type this IP address, we should not see the same page.
Let's see. I can see that.
It's just because you have the same thing. The आपकी चीज़ वही है, बस difference ये है कि आपको एक नया address मिल गया है. The thing is the same, but you got a new address.
I am using the new IP address. If I use the previous IP address, which was this, I should not be able to see this. See, if I put the previous IP address, before stopping, I had this IP address 54. So let's see what happened.
Yeah, only new one should work.
Okay. So अगर मेरी वेबसाइट का हर दफ़ा IP एड्रेस चेंज होगा तो हाउ आई एम गोइंग टू रन दिस बिजनेस? आई मीन जब भी मैं इसको स्टॉप करूँगा और उसको स्टार्ट करूँगा नया IP एड्रेस आएगा तो मुझे सारी दुनिया को नया IP एड्रेस देना पड़ेगा फिर.
It should be a dedicated IP.
So this comes in handy called elastic IP address.
I have a question. So why is there a need for the IP address to change every time?
Because when we launched this instance, so when you launch the instance, they give you option. What's its name? I have to show you actually, so you have better understanding. So every time you launch the instance, they ask you here, auto assign public IP address. This is the standard in AWS environment. You have to, if you want a public IP address, you have to assign auto public IP address, because this is free. If you want elastic IP address, or you want to reserve, or you want to have a static or a dedicated IP address, then you have to pay for that. So that's why most of the websites, most of the web servers, they use the static or the elastic IP address, because in that case, if you restart your system, your IP address will not change. So this is the elasticity and the flexibility. But if you have a regular machine, if I am using this machine for temporary task, I want to do some kind of development, so I can go ahead and launch this IP address with auto IP assign. So I will use my machine and that IP address stay there until I stop and restart it.
Did that answer your question, Manahil?
It's a bit unclear still. Like, why is there a need for the IP address to be different? Like, why does it have to be different each time? Why does it need to be auto-assigned differently each time?
Okay, because these instances are available on demand. This is the think like this is how many people, when we are talking right now and learning this, how many people in the world, they are creating an instance. So they are creating the instance for 1 day, maybe 2 days, maybe 1 month, for 3 months. So they say, I don't need it. And also their system is not, they are not using their system to host any website. So that's why they're using this auto assign. If you are using it for the website, you want to host something where public facing, then you have to have elastic IP address, or this is actually option they are giving you. But when you, as a solution architect, when you design your system, these kind of information you required from the client. Okay, your application is should be accessible to public. If they say yes, you have your domain name. They say yes, I have a domain name www.fahad.com. So then you need a static. You need a static IP address. You as a solution architect going to tell the customer. So you cannot tell until you already know what's the difference between elastic IP address, public auto assign, and the dedicated and static IP address.
So let me put this in more simpler terms. So you start with a business, right? And your client comes in and tells you, hey, I need a specific way of making my instance. And so when you're making your instance, you automatically get assigned an IP address, correct? So you're not sure what the client still wants, as an example, and they change their mind. So your instance is still there, and you're still customizing it. It still has that variable IP. So the moment they say, okay, so let's put this into gear and put this online, then you can allocate an elastic IP to it. So it has one specific IP for the public to enter. Does that make it easier?
Okay, I get it.
Okay.
I've got a question. So the public IP is kind of more dynamic and you can change it, but with the elastic or static one, it's kind of there basically.
This for the time period.
Is it okay if I add something to all of this entire discussion?
Yeah, absolutely, you can.
Okay, so guys, the way IP addresses work, dynamic, as so far we've understood that it's something that keeps changing. Static or elastic IP addresses are something that you want to keep. So having said that, just understand that those dynamic IP addresses are from your internet service providers, so your ISPs. So the way they work is they lease those IP addresses, so it's okay for them to not give you something permanent, and leasing it is like more cost effective. And the moment you try to, the moment you go for a static one, then that means you're allocating that particular address to just your device or to your company. It could be a pool, it could be one, it could be as many as you want. So then there's a cost that you bear, that you have to bear. Now, why the IP address keep changing? That has to do with a lot of understanding related to how IP addresses are allocated at first place, even randomly. So, and it's such an extensive topic, but I'll just try to keep it short, just so that you guys understand. The way it works is there's a path that all of these addresses follow. You call it a routing table. And as soon as you make a connection, it goes through a specific router to decide the path that you're going to take. Following that path, you are assigned an IP address. So every time you go back to internet, the path changes, or sometimes when you are already connected to a certain network, it could change that very instance as well. All because the path keeps changing. But once you have a static, it's there, it's yours, but then it comes with an extra cost to bear. I hope that explains a little more.
Yes, that was very helpful. Thank you.
No problem.
It's just you going to reserve something for yourself for a time period. So you have the total control. You can release this IP address if you don't need it. And in an auto sign is the system going to assign you IP address, which is going to change every time to restart your system. So this is what I did. I just created the elastic IP address. So this is my new elastic IP address. I'm going to associate this this IP address to my instance. Let's say I'm going to associate. So right now I have two instances running. One is Fahad, one is for me. So I'm selecting my. So this is my private IP address. If allow elastic IP to be reassociated if already attached. Okay. So if go back. So see, I have two IP address here now. Oh, this is so I have now I have elastic IP address instead of public IP address. So I'm going to copy this one and paste. See, this with the new IP address which I just assigned to my instance, it's giving me the website, taking me to that website. Prior to that, I had this number. So this all elastic IP address is going to stay here. If I stop it, I'm going to start it again. So see, this time when I stop it, I still have IP address here. The last time when I stopped it, when I had the auto sign, so this IP address got disappeared.
So guys, just want to let you keep in mind that this is just to show you guys how it works. You guys will be doing labs for this later on, so you can learn it yourself. And names up, we're about, I think our 2-hour thing is up, but we can go on for, I guess, the next 10 minutes or so as well. Okay. Okay.
So see that IP address is not changing this time. Even I restarted the system. So I should be able to access if it is up and running. It's still not running. Okay, wait a minute. Initializing.
Okay, I have a question here. Can we have the dynamic public IP to change always? Like, can we enable it and have the elastic IP at the same time? So what IP address we'll be using? I think we can use both, but one will be changing, another will be fixed.
Yeah, when you say dynamic, obviously it's going to change every time you restart, but this elastic IP address is going to stay there. Yes, you can have public assigned IP address and as well as this elastic IP address.
Okay, and for the users to access the website, we'll just provide the elastic IPs, right?
I mean, doesn't make any sense if you have auto sign. What's the point then when you have a reserved IP address? Why we want to have?
Yeah. Okay.
Why is it taking that much time this time? So in the next class, we will be discussing the security level, like how we create the security groups, and what are those security layers. There are 2 levels of security. One is called security group, and other is called access control list. We also going to learn about the routing table in a VPC class, virtual private network class, and we also going to learn this, what is private subnet and what is public subnet, how to create those subnets, and how to create the routing table, and how we're going to attach the routing table to private subnet and the public subnet.
That's fantastic. So what we're going to do is, if there are people... Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, with the new now I have provided the new elastic IP address, I can see the page. So this is what I want to show you. So even I restarted, this IP address gonna stay here because you reserved it, and it will stay until I release it. For example, if I go, I say I don't need this reserved IP address, I can go to this side, I can disassociate, and then I can release this address. Once you release, the same IP address you can assign to other machine. That's what I'm trying to show you. Okay, that's it.
Okay, perfect. So I was going to say, guys, whoever wants to leave now, they can, but there's a bit of a Q&A session. If you have any questions, this is the best time to actually ask those. If you're not clear about a concept, please do ask right now. This is where you get the wealth of information in Q&A session. This is what we usually wait for.
I have a question. So my understanding so far, if I'm correct, is that an IP address functions as a way of communicating between machines, I think, but also it serves as an identifier. Am I right in thinking that?
Yes. Any device on the network, when they communicate, they must have some sort of IP address, either private, either static, or they can have a dynamic. Unless they have this IP address, they cannot communicate.
Okay, thank you. And my second question was around, so say for example, I think this relates to images, if I remember correctly, and instances. So globally then I can kind of launch any instant in depending on my business needs then. So it's not restricted geographically or anything like that.
No, that's why we call the agility and that flexibility and elasticity. you can, like the image I just created, show you for Fahad.
Mm-hmm.
You can create the similar instance in London, in Frankfurt, in Sydney.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a question. Can we have like two IPs for one instance, like simultaneously, like in public IP and in elastic IP?
Yes, you can have, but the thing is, what's the point to have two?
Yes, exactly. That was the question. I'm a bit confused actually there.
So the thing is, more IP address mean you are exposing your system for the risk. You are actually inviting the attack on your system.
Okay.
जितने भी IP address होंगे उतने ही ज़्यादा आपको security measurements लेने पड़ेंगे उसके लिए. So the best practice is this: you should have only one IP address, either auto assign or the static IP address.
Okay, and I have another question. You actually talked about a few families like M4 and like there was this list of families. So what exactly is the difference?
The difference, see, हर बिजनेस की डिफरेंट रिक्वायरमेंट है. फॉर एग्जांपल मेरा बिजनेस है, उसके अंदर मैं कोई फाइनेंशियल एप्लीकेशन रन कर रहा हूँ. तो फाइनेंशियल एप्लीकेशन जो रन कर रहा हूँ उसके अंदर बहुत ज़्यादा मुझे ना मैथमेटिक्स इन्वॉल्व है उसके अंदर. देयर आर सो मेनी लॉजिक्स बिल्ट इनटू द एप्लीकेशन. So that's mean when every time you have that kind of complication in your application, you're doing a lot of mathematics algorithms on the using your software. So you need two things. You need a more processing power, and then you need a more memory. So having this in mind, they have designed these families कि अगर आपका business जो है वो process intensive है, then you should go and find the image in the M4 family. If your system is very generic, then you can go to the general family like कौन से क्या नाम था उसका, generic family like T2, T3. So this is how they classified the families on the basis of the requirement and the computation power you required for your business.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other question, guys? Tareem, do you have anything you want to add for today's class?
I'm good, Fahad. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Okay, guys, so if you don't have any more questions, I guess that's the end of class. Just want to say thank you again for coming in. And I hope you guys have a good day. So in regards to the slides and presentations people have been asking since the first class as well, we will get on that. We'll let you know during, I guess, at the end of today or by tomorrow, inshallah. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no worries. Okay, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.